Jerry Springer, the grandfather of trash TV, is dead at age 78. What's his legacy? Is the world a better place for having Jerry Springer in it? We will debate that topic on today's show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
Here we go. Trigger warning. Spoiler alert. Jerry. You are experiencing a trashy daytime edition of the Tom Kelly Show. Actually, it's not daytime at all. It's 11 o'clock at night, April 27th. I got the news this evening that Jerry Springer had died, and you guys who love the Tom Kelly Show podcast, the podcast that does explore the midlife crisis, the podcast that owns life's transitions, the podcast where one comedian brings the offbeat and we come to meet. If you guys love my show, you know I love me a dead celebrity. And I didn't know Jerry Springer in person. I'm sure I've been in a room with him a couple of times. I'm not an admirer of his career, and I want to acknowledge something before I start the show. He is a real person. I have friends who have worked with him up in NBC in Connecticut, and hard to believe that show owned by NBC. Put that on the side for a minute. Jerry Springer. People I know who worked for him adored him. So I know two. The two people I know who worked for him adored him. One of whom described him as hardworking even after he retired. Like Jerry Springer retired and then banked like a lot of shows his last year or two. So there would still be fresh Jerry Springer shows. And my understanding is he was actually still willing to do promos and internet stuff to promote his shows after the fact, and I just have at least one, if not two, friends who are effusive about him. That said, Jerry Springer is synonymous with trash TV. He is. I mean, he's a punchline. He's a comedian punchline. Crowds getting rowdy. What is this? Jerry Springer over here? What are we doing? Well, are we part of the Jerry Springer audience? That's what you would say when a crowd's getting rowdy, when you're a comedian reaching for a joke. I feel like there are two types of Jerry Springer fans. There are people who watch Jerry Springer, and there are people who swear they've never seen Jerry Springer, but we've all seen Jerry Springer, at least for a bit, people. Don't even lie to yourself. I'm not a fan. I actually hate it. The show used to make me cringe, some of these topics, and I've watched it on more than one occasion. And again, let's get the punchlines out. This is what you're supposed to do when you're a comedian and you're podcasting. These are real Jerry Springer topics. You slept with my stripper sister. I slept with 251 men in 10 hours. I married a horse. Married to your dad, but want you back. Yeah, okay, that I got it. I am married, so I guess that topic has to be the ex of someone who married that guy's father, and then they want their initial ex back. Yeah, boom. Zach, the 70-pound baby. There's another article that had a better list here. Confront this dominatrix. Trick or treaters. Lesbians come clean. And then worshiping the Lord with snakes. And then, this is the one that I found on CNN.com. A 1995 episode of Jerry Springer featured a young man named Raymond, whom Mr. Springer was helping to lose his virginity, offering him 5 young women hidden behind a screen to choose from. Raymond's friend Woody accompanied him. But the graphic on the screen was, Woody doesn't know his 18-year-old virgin sister is one of the contestants. This is a real TV show. I mean, geez, we talk about the age of cancellation. Oh my God, somebody told a joke too edgy, blah, blah, blah. Let's ruin that comedian, or that comedian shouldn't work here anymore. Folks, we put this on real TV in the 1990s. And again, I'm not a cancel culture guy at all, but folks, we put Woody Doesn't Know It. His 18-year-old virgin sister is one of the contestants on the dating game on Jerry Springer. That's a chunk of TV we had. And Jerry Springer made us feel better about ourselves by making other people feel worse. And that's something to point out. Jerry Springer made us feel better about ourselves by showing people living worse lives than ourselves. I don't know if any of us should be proud of ever watching that show. And it was there. I mean, it is a mark of times. When you go through what daytime TV was, and this is anecdotal, not historical. If you're writing a paper on the history of daytime TV, go look at a Wikipedia page, because I'm not reliable. But, you had the 1970s. You had happy shows like Merv Griffin, and you had grandma's soap operas, or as a lot of New Yorker grandmas used to call them, their programs. The programs. I'm watching my program. That was a grandma code word for soap opera. And those weren't clean. Those were pretty trashy too at times. And then you had, I would say in the 1980s and early, a lot of what they would call single issue talk shows. I'll argue Tamron Hall is trying to do the best of that today. Where you talk about, okay, we're talking about eating disorders today. And then each segment had an eating disorder. Now, again, my feelings on Tamron Hall. Loved her when I was working for her. End of story there. But read between the lines, people. Now, Jerry Springer, I think, led the race to the bottom. In the late 1980s, there was a late night show called Morton Downey Jr., and it was like a late night talk show host. I don't remember much of it except that my parents wouldn't let me watch it. But imagine Jerry Springer if Jerry Springer smoked and yelled at the audience. Audience booing, getting rowdy. Raucous was the New York Times wrote a very nice obituary about Jerry Springer, and the word raucous was used. But rowdy, trashy, angry crowd. Was Morton Downey Jr. And I think what happened was Jerry Springer was a smart guy, went to law school, ran for governor of Ohio, was an anchor of the news. And, I think somewhere along the line, daytime TV realized more people watch things when we talk about the worst of ourselves. And daytime got really trashy. And listen, even too, I'm a big Howard Stern fan. Howard Stern was a shock jock, But what was weird about Jerry Springer, or not weird, but real about that era of daytime TV, is there were people, we were playing with real lives. Like I would watch, I remember sometimes my grandmother would yell at my grandfather if he watched Jerry Springer. And, there were people would call the daytime TV shows professional wrestling, but it wasn't. Those were real lives, people. We're dealing with real lives. Jenny Jones outed a man and he killed himself, if I'm not mistaken. That was one. Jenny Jones, suicide, Googling. Yeah, somebody got murdered. But the show was ultimately found not to be liable. But was it? Maybe not legally liable, but morally liable when you're exploiting people's stories, when you're exploiting the mentally unwell. Has anybody watched an episode of Jerry Springer or Maury Povich and said, well, those folks, yes, they have problems, but they are mentally well-adjusted? No, they're not. Lesbians come clean even too. Though I love saying the word lesbian. That may sound homophobic, but it is it's a clumsy word. lesbian. But lesbians we were homophobic in the 90s. And we turned it into television with, again, real lives. Real lives. I have a list here. Hang on. But here's what happened. 1990s, it was a race to the bottom. I, luckily, got into daytime TV when things were starting to elevate. You had even Oprah, by the way. A lot of people, you can't find them. But I believe Oprah did a couple of trashy shows in the 90s as well. And then Oprah said, F this, I'm going to be cleaner. And she started getting cleaner. And then Rosie O'Donnell came into the game in 1996. And Rosie O'Donnell was doing the Merv Griffin format. And, Rosie started giving away big prizes. Then in the 2000s, Oprah was giving a new car to every audience member who had a driver's license. And daytime got happier. And where is daytime now? My old favorite show, The View, they're doing well, but they're talking about, current events, news of the day. But if you turn on the TV during the day, it's reruns of low-budget shows that were filmed a few years ago. Your Maury's, your Jerry Springers, those were all done a couple of years ago. Judge Judy, which arguably is a little bit trashy, but feels legal. I like Judge Judy because I like Judge Judy and my grandma liked Judge Judy, so maybe I'm part of the problem there. But yeah, and also right now, daytime TV, as we have these options with the streamers. I mean, geez, my friend Trillian was just confronting me, today that I had not watched Mrs. Maisel seasons 4 or 5. You're right. There's 10 hours of TV. Why would I watch a rerun of Jerry Springer or any daytime TV show when I haven't seen Mrs. Maisel? I haven't seen The Boys yet. Actually, I have seen The Boys, and it's a great show. But you get what I'm saying, people. You get what I'm saying. And it's funny, I do think the heyday of daytime TV is over. At Jerry Springer's peak, Jerry Springer in 1993, his peak episode, I don't know which one it was, had 8 million viewers. And remember, the last 2 years, Jerry Springer was working in TV. He banked an extra year of show. Now, did he pay the camera guys an extra year of pay? No, they worked longer, harder days. But, and I also like to point out Jerry Springer did not have a union warm-up comedian. Would I have changed my mind if he did? Yes. I would at least be quieter about it. But for real, if this is a media, but it is, but even reflecting on myself, people, am I angry enough to, again, does comedy have to dig to the bottom? Can you really be a comedian when you're just kind of being nice to people? Am I a comedian or a clown? Those are the reflections I think about myself all the time. It talks about how the difference between Jerry Springer and some of these other shows is Jerry Springer owned who he was. He knew he was the trashy guy. In the year 2000, the show's notoriety peaked when a German man was accused of killing his ex-wife after they appeared together on Springer's show. The man's new wife, Ralph. There we go. Somebody from Springer was accused of killing somebody, and Ralph Penitz was convicted of second-degree murder for beating Nancy Penitz for death. I mean, those are people they put on the show. Those are people that are sharing that energy. They're sharing that story with America. And that guy made millions off it, and we gave it to him. And there's a great question now. As TV is changing, as we're going to apps and the TikTok and whatever, are we better off without Maury Povich? Are we better off without Jerry Springer? And I'm going to own my own hypocrisy here and say we're all still consuming trash. We're just doing it a la carte instead of getting it at the Springer buffet. And yeah, we're all consuming our trash a la carte. What does that mean? I watched a 3-minute TikTok watching a liberal woman get kicked off a plane for harassing a Trump supporter today. I'm watching women who shouldn't be shaking their butt, they pop up on my For You page on the TikTok. You know, I watch people playing Super Mario Brothers lately. That's not trashy, but is it good for my mind? Remember, when they first invented radio, there were people who were saying, and now people can listen to orchestras whenever they want, you know, or when the internet came out, we could have libraries of books whenever you want. And it was, you know, I think I just saw a porn site called Spank Bang. Spank Bang. How did I find that? Accidentally Googling? Am I better than anybody I'm making fun of with Jerry Springer? I'll tell you one thing. I've told this story on the podcast before, and I tell it now. There is nothing like the joy of explaining trashy TV to my Catholic father. A while back, for the sake of the story, I was hurt and needed to go to I was going to a lot of doctor's appointments. And my dad is carrying my baby nephew, TJ, who was under 1 at the time. And my dad took me to whatever hospital I needed to go for a update with. And, you know, when you're in a rough hospital, the TV is on, and somebody in the waiting room put on Maury Povich and Jerry Springer. And I remember my father watching a paternity test episode of Maury Povich and getting angry and not understanding the draw. You know, again, Jerry Springer, so trashy, they gave his security guy, Steve Wilkos, his own TV show. You know, and they made a lot of money off it. Yeah, is the world better off without Jerry Springer? You know, one catchphrase you're going to hear on the Tom Kelly Show a lot. So to be free, you have to be worth being free. And think about what we're doing with our freedom. We have the freedom of speech. What are we saying to each other? We have the freedom to carry guns, which I believe in our Second Amendment right. And now you have people running around shooting kids in schools. You know, and with our freedom of speech, what are we consuming? What are we reading? What are we choosing to read? You know, what are we filling our brains with? You know, that's my thought. I guess what I liked most about Jerry Springer on the occasions I watched him was he would do 55 minutes of trash. He would do, you know, trying to hook up a virgin boy with his virgin sister. And then at the end of the show, he would have the audacity to have the final thought, which would be his semi-wholesome message contradicting whatever mess he had just portrayed, like he was better than everybody else. And it was kind of like his Andy Rooney moment, making sense of whatever mess he showed us. And he would end every show with his signature line, take care of yourself and each other. So to you, my Tom Kelly Show audience, I say, take care of yourself and each other. Good night, New York.